let us know if you can hear us okay in the comments. Also, please let us know if where you are joining us from. So, without further ado, let's get started. This is Samia Rose. I am your host from Toronto. Hello, everyone. Alrighty. So I will start with introducing myself. This is Samia Rose. I'm one of the top PMI certified in PMI ecosystem with PMP, PGMP, PFMP, PMI, PBA, risk management, AI project management, change management, transformation, and I have a master's degree in management sciences. One of my hobby is to research the topics. I keep an eye on the workplace landscape all the time. That's one of my favorite topic. So I love to read where our industry is heading from employees work performance and recruitment perspective. Part of my life was a career in HR. Now I work in project portfolio, PMO, and transformation domain. So together, I have built a skill set that helps me to understand what is happening in the industry. So I really provide feedback on your resume, the way you interview, your profiles, and all the way how you perform at the job. Feel free to visit snsccs.com for more details. So let's start with today's topic. So everyone, welcome again. Today's session is called Why Smart People Fail. In fact, many people who struggle at work are hardworking, educated, capable, and committed people. This intelligence helps, but value protects your job. So, in a tighter workplace, being smart is no longer enough. The people who say relevant are the ones who understand expectations, create visible value, communicate clearly, adapt quickly, and keep growing before the market forces them to. So, why are we talking about this now? Because the workplace has changed, the economy is tight, work gets done, and employers are asking for clearer value from every role. This does not mean people should. It does mean professionals need to be more intentional. Today, it's not enough to say I work hard. The stronger question is what value am I creating and can people see it? So, guys, heavily working in program, project, portfolio, PMO transformation domain and having experience of working in the Fortune 500. I've worked in both private and public sector. One thing I have seen very consistently throughout the industry or job functions is that every single employer right now is looking at how to optimize the workforce. As we know that workforce, particularly if you are in service industry, is almost like 70% of the expense an employer hold. So with AI and optimization and automation, there is a big focus on how do you make your organization or company more efficient and optimize resourcing. And that is the reason why we are seeing a lot of layoffs. And the theme that came out of that is that everybody looking at their resources from the lens of what value do they bring to the organization. And this is not just specific to employees, it's also with the functions, like as a project manager or as a project, like what value an organization along with what value a project is bringing for the organization, or like if an organization has a PMO, what value are they driving from that PMO? And if I am in HR, I have to answer that question as well. Like how many functions in the organization are actually bringing measurable value to the organization and trickles down all the way to everybody today is measured against one criteria, and that is what value do I bring. That is why we are looking at this topic today, and I had a lot of requests from different industries and employee segments to cover this topic today. So the market has less patience for average performance today. Jobs still exist, but competition feels sharper. Hiring can slow even when workload increases. That means employees may be expected to do more, adapt faster, and prove impact more clearly. Average performance becomes risky when organizations are reviewing cost, productivity, and role relevance. So the goal is not just to keep a job, the goal is to become clearly valuable. Only happening in one country, Canada, Europe, and United States. Job demands are shifting across markets. Transferable skills matter more. Communication, adaptability, business understanding, digital skills, and stakeholder management are becoming career protection skills. The more transferable your value is, the harder you become to replace. And that is the topic of our session today. Layoffs are not always a sign that a company is failing. Sometimes layoffs happen because work is being redesigned. Companies may reduce roles in one area while investing heavily in AI, automation, or new business models. That is a signal we need to understand. Employees cannot rely only on job titles anymore. The safer question is my work still connected to where the organization is going? Task. They work hard, they often get results quietly, but valuable people go further. They understand the purpose behind the task, they make their impact visible, they connect their work to business outcomes, and that is the difference between being busy and being valuable. Effort says I was busy, value says something improved. This is major mindset shift. Hard work matters, protect your career. Decision makers care about outcomes. Did something improve? Did risk reduce? Did quality increase? Did cost, time, customer experience, or productivity get better? That is the language of in the chat and say what is your understanding of value. I'll give you a minute to respond to my question in the comments. All right, so guys, thank you for your comments. So let's look at mistake number one employees today can make. The first mistake is confusing effort with outcome. So many people say, I worked so hard on this. That may be true, but the workplace usually reward results, not just effort. Hard work must create a visible result. So instead of only describing the task, we need to describe the improvement created by the task. So let me help you visualize the story. So you are an employee, and in the past, it was very clock in, clock out type of mentality. I would go to work and I would sit on my desk for 8 hours, and that was enough for my manager to know that I'm physically present in the workplace. Then we hit COVID and we moved to remote work all of a sudden, and that is where the technical shift happened, where employers actually started looking at the KPIs that could measure performance of people working off site. Now, as a manager, I could not actually see where my employee is sitting and what he's doing. So that is where this shift actually started, and people started talking about what did you do instead of how many hours you spent on that. So today, the value comes from how you're helping organization and what outcomes you are driving instead of how many hours you are spending on your work. And this is the mistake number one, where employees are still in that old mindset where they think that sitting at the work is more than enough. There are more employees in the market than the jobs. It's definitely an employer driven market. So bargaining power is definitely in employers' hand today, because they have more than available people, more people available than they need, and that's why the best one will be picked. Employers are not hesitant to do layoffs today or replace a worker, because with AI, it's very the learning curves very easy to replace a worker today as compared to previous years. So if you want to be successful in workplace, you need to move your mentality, switch gears, and help yourself understand that you need to produce value and not just clock in, clock out. And you not only just um, produce value, you help people to understand it as well. So here is a simple tool. Say I completed X so that Y improved and the result was Z. For example, I completed the weekly project report so that leadership had clear visibility into risks and results was faster to make faster decision making. This is how you turn ordinary work into value language. For the live exercise, think about one thing you completed that this week and turn it into value statement. So I'll give you 2 minutes to think about it, and please write down your statement either in the chat, or you can use your notebook to write this in your own notebook. So let's look at the mistake number two. These are my observations and experience here. This is the knowledge I'm sharing from my observation, my work experience, and from the literature. So this is for your guidance. Of course, every work environment is different, every employee is different, every manager is different. So these are the standard guidelines I can provide you to help you to excel at work, but these are not the concrete stepping stones that you must follow as is. So mistake number two is not knowing what success means. Many people start work without confirming the target. So then later they receive feedback that surprises them. That is avoidable. So smart professionals clarify expectations early. They do not assume that completing the task means they met the real expectation. Vague goals create vague results. So guys, very important here, the beauty lies in the eyes of beholder, and the value lies in the eyes of person who envisioned that work and passed it to you. One thing I have really witnessed in particularly the entry level employees who just landed in the job market, they do not fully understand the expectation of their manager or employer or owner or the leader. They assume things, they start working on that, and they add their own imagination into the work, which is maybe very strategic type without necessarily understanding the big picture. Because your manager is working with maybe 10 departments, and his vision is different than your vision. What you see is one piece, what your manager is seeing 10 pieces. So what you see is not what he sees. So what he envisioned is not what you envisioned. So the work he's passing you is as per his or her or company requirement, and you assume what from your little knowledge what you understand, and you start working without necessarily understanding what is expected of you. So how do you improve that? Before starting important work, ask three questions. First, what matters most? Second, how will this? Third, what must not go wrong? This is very, very important for you to know. These three questions reduce misunderstanding. They also show maturity. Just asking what to do, you are asking what success actually looks like as per the person whose vision or mission is to finish that work and not yours. So when you are given work by somebody, it's just like, if I'm running a program or a project or even a portfolio where the organization is trying to achieve specific goals, and all the way down to this one employee, when the work comes, this employee maybe has one little piece of that work and does not necessarily understand why behind it. So first you should know what you're doing, why the organization is doing the work you are doing, and how do you add value, not just for that task but overall for the organization. If you start doing that, your manager will perceive you as like a senior employee and not just somebody who doesn't know how to do the work. So with that, let's move to the mistake number 3 most of the employees make. So waiting for direction. Direction is helpful, but ownership means seeing the next step without being told. There are 3 choices. Decide when the path is clear and risk is low. Ask when you need authority or more context. Escalate when the risk is real and urgent. That is how professionals show judgment. Mistake number 4 is weak communication, and that creates extra work, guys. It causes confusion. Rework is bound to happen when you don't understand communication. And remember, guys, communication is two-way. It's somebody speaking and somebody perceiving it. Your perception is not always correct. Make sure that you validate what you perceive or what you hear so that you and your manager or person who's assigning you work are on the same page. And this is happens most of the time in the workplace. So it also delays and frustrates your managers or leaders or organizations. So good communication keeps people aligned. Great communication does something even more powerful. It speeds up decisions, and people trust professionals who make work to understand. So here is a tool we can use. Use 5 sentences: status, risk, decision needed, next steps, and date. This keeps updates short and useful. Instead of sending long message, give people what they need to act on. So action item. Clear communication is not about saying more, it's about reducing confusion. So let's pause for a reflection. Take 5 minutes and answer honestly. What is one behavior you need to stop because it reduces your value or visibility? What is one behavior you need to start because it would make your impact clearer? And what value you are creating that decision makers cannot currently see? This is important because invisible value is still vulnerable value. So, guys, these questions are very, very legit questions, particularly in today's project economy, where which is a norm. It's not change is the only constant in the workplace today. So every day you wake up, you hear about new technology, new tools, AI, We all witnessed how ChatGPT became part of people's life in just some maybe couple of years. So that really is a good example for you to understand how valuable, and value is not just for in your eyes, but the actual value is in the eyes of person who is your reporting manager or who is rating your performance, who has authority to lay you off if the time comes where the workforce reduction is required for organizations to survive. There's another myth which employees do not understand. A lot of times when layoffs are happening, I've been part of a lot of layoff projects. So where layoffs are happening, employees think that it's at the discretion of employer or organization, which is mostly not the case. Organizations are equally sad to let their employees go because every employer, they from where I see it, they value their employees. But there are times where if these actions are not taken, the company will not survive. So instead of like letting go the whole organization, there are like 50 or 100 or 500 or 1000, depending on the size of the organization. If a smaller chunk of people is laid off to survive the organization, it is something employers are required to do, and it's not their choice. So this is where we need to make sure that we are not just creating value. Our value is actually seen and witnessed by the people who mattered most to your job. So my hiring manager, my reporting manager, my HR team, my organization, my leaders. So think about it. Think about your work. It's time to reflect and then see that how you're adding value, and then what is one behavior you need to stop. So that one behavior could be something that reduces your value or visibility. So for example, if you do your work but you don't do your work on time and you produce the work after the meeting where everybody was supposed to see your work, you are not visible. Then what is one behavior you need to start focusing on? Something that would make your impact clearer. So that means you take clear direction, you do the right work, you connect the dots, and you understand how your work matters strategically, how you're adding value to your organization or your department or to your manager's portfolio. And then go and ask your manager if he is seeing the impact or if your perception of value is aligned with your leader's perception of value. Also, what value must become more visible? So what work you do well that decision makers cannot see. So you're not just making sure that you're doing the right work, but we're making sure that your work is seen by the right people at the right time for the right reasons. So this is why we are holding this session today, so that you start reflecting on daily basis, because it's not a month's game now or year's game. Things are changing in the workplace on daily basis. Change is the only constant. It's happening on the speed of light. Organizations are getting more tools and automating more work, and this is just the beginning. So with that, let's look at the fifth mistake employees make. So the fifth mistake is solving tasks without understanding the business problem. So guys, every project, every program, every initiative, or every task happens for a reason in the organization. And at the back end, it's solving a problem your employer has. So it starts with understanding what the business problem you are solving. Every task has two layers. Above the surface is the task, what to do. Below the surface is the reason why it matters to the organization, who pays you, who you work for. So promotable people understand both. They don't just complete assignments, they understand the business reasons behind those assignments. The owner lens is something you should all be very well versed with. The owner lens means thinking like it is your money. Before a major decision, ask, would I spend on this? Would I delay this? Would I accept this risk? This does not mean you own the company, it means you think beyond your task. That mindset makes your judgment stronger and your recommendation more valuable. So, I have worked in the organization of all sizes and all kind of industries for almost like 2 decades now. One thing I've seen very consistently in the new employees particularly, or maybe very old employees who are not still mature, but I will call it a differentiator. People who go all the way to CEO level, I worked on some succession planning of the major positions, and I have worked with very senior leaders all the way to CEOs, CHROs, CTOs, or CFOs. One thing I have witnessed very clearly is that people who break the glass ceiling, or people who go at the senior level positions, they all hold this one trait, that they treat their work as it's their own work. So this really helps you to understand what to do versus what not to do, and how to make yourself visible at work. The sixth mistake is being invisible until something goes wrong. Quiet work can be valuable, but invisible work is easy to miss. You are not only responsible for doing the work, you are also responsible for making sure the right people know the work is happening. Visibility is not bragging. Useful visibility builds trust. So, guys, in today's project economy, where there are like new initiatives happening, and initiative or project means that it's not operation. So the definition of project is that it has a start date and it has an end date. So how it differentiate a work environment from an operation perspective is that in operations the work is ongoing, and there are people, most of them are permanent, and everybody knows everybody. Whereas in projects, most of the time it's new teams, you're working with people you don't know. Your work could be a dependency on some very major task, even maybe your work is not that big of an ask from the organization perspective, but maybe there is another critical component of the work that is dependent on your work. So it's very important for you to help those people understand that yes, this work is happening, it's on track, I'm on it. So this is something that could help you to survive in this very unpredictable times. So our tool 4 is weekly value proof. A simple weekly habit can change your visibility. Track your work, and particularly these 4 things: completed, improved, prevented, and next focus. So what did I finish in this week? What got better? What problems did I prevent? And what am I focusing on next? This helps you to prepare for performance conversations every week and keep your value visible throughout the year. So guys, I worked on one of the projects back in 2013 at Gap Inc., where it is now a case study for Harvard University Business School. So feel free to browse it. So Gap Inc. actually went from rating and reviews to no rating and no reviews, and in the right time touch bases and feedback. So which means that there are no performance reviews after 6 months or a year where your manager is sitting with you and saying, okay, you got 4 out of 5, that kind of something, whereas you are rated every day on your work. So that mindset is the reality of today's for pretty much all the organizations. So keeping that in mind, you want to make sure that weekly your manager is aware of all these four criteria we discussed about. Remember, it's your duty, the onus is on you to show your manager that you are working and adding value, rather than passively sitting and waiting to listen from your manager that you are doing a great job without necessarily helping them understand. So, mistake seven is treating stakeholders as optional. Your work depends on people. People have priorities, fears, pressures, and expectations. Influence starts when you understand what matters to them. Strong professionals do not only manage tasks, they manage relationship around the work. So, our tool number five is the simple stakeholder map. So, use four questions: who cares? What do they need? What could worry them? What is my next message? This keeps stakeholders management simple and practical. You do not need to complicate documents. You need a clear understanding of who matters, what they need, and how to keep them. So, one mistake I have seen very let's call it junior level employees with like less work tenure in the organizations, or new promoted managers, or maybe tenured employees who did not really want to perform but just want to clock in clock out. It is very important for you to understand your stakeholders. So stakeholders or customers, right? It all starts with identifying who matters most. So who has interest in your work and who has influence over your work. So these are two things you really want. Direct manager is asking work from you, your CEO asking work from you, rather than maybe a vendor asking work from you does not have the same weightage. So you need to really understand who's asking and what is are they asking, and then treat them as you need to treat them from priority perspective. So we always have fast-paced work environment today, and we always have less time on hand. So the priority is another important. So you need to understand who the core stakeholders you are dealing with, who can influence your job. So who cares, and what do they need from you is your next question to answers, and what could worry them, and what is next. So if you keep an eye on these weekly basis, that would really help you to solve the problems we discussed above. So mistake number 8 is using AI as a shortcut only. AI can draft, summarize, and speed up routine work, but AI cannot replace judgment, context, relationship, intelligence, or accountability. AI can make good thinking faster, but it can also expose weak thinking faster too. So the human edge is better judgment. Make sure you always, I am all in, use these tools, because technically you cannot survive in the smart organizations today if you don't use these tools. So that totally speeds up your work, but make sure that human judgment is in the loop. And having said that, I mean that you review your work and you make sure that you're not blindly getting work done from AI and passing it to the leaders. AI plus judgment. So use AI as a first draft, not the final answer. Ask AI for a draft, then check facts and context, then add decision logic. That last step is where your value shows up. AI can help you move faster, but you are still responsible for the quality, accuracy, and judgment behind the final output. So, mistake number 9 is stopping growth after getting the job. So this is very common and very relevant to today's discussion, guys. The ninth mistake is stopping growth after getting the job. Means the job keeps changing after you accept it. Your skill expire quietly. So the routine is simple: learn, apply, and share. Identify one skill you need, apply it in real work within 30 days, then teach it to someone else. This is how learning becomes capability. So, guys, this is exactly what I do. I make sure that every year, I enhance my skills, my knowledge, my experience, and have been adding certifications to my portfolio every 6 months. So yeah, in the initial discussion, I discussed that I have almost all major PMI certifications that make me one of the top certified person in PMI ecosystem. And that really helped me to accelerate my career in all domains. And now I like to do these free classes. I like to teach people, and that gives me a refresher. So, guys, make sure that you are adding value to somebody else's life, not from the very professional monetary perspective. It gives you satisfaction, and trust me, giving is a strength. So, learn something and see if you can help somebody else to learn that skills. It will give you mastery, it will give you growth, it will give you confidence. So this is the high performer operating system. Clarify expectations, create business value, communicate early, keep learning. These four habits sound simple, but they are powerful. Stay aligned, visible, useful, and adaptable. And this is what makes someone. Any question? We'll pause here for a couple of minutes and feel free to write any questions in the chat. All right, guys, welcome back. So, here's your 30-day reset. Week one, your statement. Week three, strengthen one stakeholder relationship. And week four, improve one with one practical habit each week. Small habits create career resilience. The final message is simple: be clear, be youthful, be visible, and ready. Smart is important, but smart alone is not enough. In today's workplace, the safest professionals are the ones who understand what matters, create visibility, value community early, build stronger relationship, and keep growing before they are forced to. That is how you become harder to replace. So, guys, for the next 1+ hours, we will be doing Q&A and we'll be answering your questions. So feel free to put your, putting this 30-day owner reset plan here on the screen while we are answering your questions, and we'll take your questions one by one. Alrighty, so guys, our first question here is that how to future very unpredictable gray market. So thank you so much for your question. I think it's a great it's a great question. So guys, I think this is one thing that we really, I think you thinking about future proofing is actually a great beginning. Someone who asked this question must be thinking about the future. So today we need to really focus on our future more than ever before. It was a norm. Somebody will get a job and they will keep that job for 20 years and they will retire. I feel like type of environment where, I've also already seen companies doing employee marketplace where they are sharing resources. We need to learn the skills which are in demand. I think if you want to do some rehearsal today, if Claude or whatever tool use, and ask what are the 10 top skills that are valuable. Project management, guys, is one of those profession that is definitely excelling years over years. If you look at PMI's research reports, there are millions of jobs created for project managers every year. This is one of the hot job because anytime there is change and change happens every day, this is the only constant. So every organization to survive in today's AI, automation, or project driven economy have to move to a future state which is very different from today. So every organization needs to understand their current state, where they are at today, and their future state, like what do they have to do, and how to get to there. Like you have to envision your future state as an organization, and this is exactly an individual needs to do. So understand your current state, your strengths, your weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and then see to future proof, like what can I do, what can I do, and then you fill that gap by learning or enhancing your skills or networking, knowing the right people in the domain, making sure excelling in your current job. And that is how you future proof yourself today. Understand your current state, paint a picture of your future state, and understand that gap that is stopping you to go from your current state to future state, and then fill that gap. And that gap could be different for everybody. So I do provide 15 minutes free consultations, guys. If you really want to do that, feel free to go to SNS, SNS, and understand, the you can what do we do, and if you have any related questions, feel free to book time with me, and I will be there to help you. Um, your questions, so feel free to keep putting your question in the chat, and I will be happy to respond to your questions. With that, let's go to the question number 2. So question number 2 is, are you saying hard work does not matter anymore? Very, very good question. Very smart question, guys. So I'm not saying at all that hard work does not matter. Hard work still matters. The point is that hard work by itself is not enough today. Clear value. In the workplace, people are usually judged by outcomes, what improved, what reduced, or what results were created. So the goal is not to stop working hard, but to connect hard work to visible impact. So it's not just for people or employees, guys. Even I've seen the biggest like projects finish on time, on schedule. They delivered the scope on quality, yet they were not seen as a value add to the organization. I can give you one example. So let's say an organization bought a new tool. Let's say they bought Workday for HR. The company, decides they want to achieve through implementing this ERP system. So, for example, they are saying, okay, let's bring Workday and enhance our employee performance, or enhance our recruitment timeline, or enhance our diversity, numbers, maybe hire from underprivileged places. And let's look at the compensation, make sure our salaries are fair. So I had, as an organization, all these goals in my mind when I implemented Workday. I passed it to a project manager or a program manager. We hired a vendor, we spent millions of dollars. The tool was implemented successfully. So the processes were designed, the tool was implemented, the training happened, the vendor implemented and passed it to operations successfully, on time, on budget, and on scope with the quality agreed upon. Yet the project failed miserably. Like, why? Now, the project finished, the implementation happened, but people who were supposed to use this tool did not use the tool, which means there is no value generated for the organization. So I thought by spending millions and millions of dollars, I will enhance my recruitment speed, or I will be paying more fair wages, or my diversity numbers would look better. But my people will learn faster. But nothing happened because people who were supposed to use this tool are not using this tool. So technically, the value is zero for the organization, even everything was done successfully. And it is the same case in the individual scenarios. If I am an employee and I'm given a work item to finish, I finished my work, but that work I finished did not impact the outcomes at all. That work will not create value. And even when I finished everything, my work was not visible. So there's no visible impact on my performance. So this is exactly what I meant. By all means, I did not say that stop working hard. Working hard is the number one requirement to be seen in your job. So I have another question. But before I move into that, I'm just changing the title. So, question number 3 is, what is the difference between being smart and being valuable at work? So, guys, in my humble opinion, a smart person may know how to complete the task well. A valuable person understands why the task matters, how it connects to the organization's goal, and how to communicate the results clearly. Being smart helps you do the work, but being valuable helps people to see why your work matters. I hope that helps. Alrighty, so let's move to our next question. So, how can someone make their value visible without sounding like they're bragging? Great question. Great question, guys. So, I know, most of the time, when you are talking about your work, people can assume that you're bragging, but a couple of situations where actually, at least from my experience, bragging is not bad. One, when you are in a job interview, so it's all about you. They actually want you to tell them all the good things about you. So brag as much as you can. And same is the performance reviews, right? So bragging is not always a bad thing. It is if you bring facts at work. So visibility is not bragging by all means when it is useful and factual. Instead of saying, look how great I am, you can say, this is what was completed, this is what improved, and this is the next focus. That helps managers and teammates understand progress. Good visibility builds trust because people know what is happening before problems appear. Thank you so much. I think this was a great question. Thanks, guys. Keep sending the questions. I know we have people joining from different, platforms. So not necessarily everyone can see the question. So we have like a different pool of questions that people are asking us from different platforms, and you might not be able to see all the questions in the chat that are coming through us. So I will definitely read the question and then start answering, guys. So the next question is, what should I do if my manager does not clearly explain expectations? Again, very, very good and thoughtful question. So, guys, from my over couple of decades experience and my humble opinion, you should ask clarifying questions early. For example, what matters most for the project? How will success be judged? And what matters most? What must not go wrong? These questions show maturity because you are not just asking what to do, you are trying to understand what success looks like. So make sure that you ask these questions to clarify your work right in the beginning. And um, and and that is the time. So you don't want to, you are assigned a task for, like, let's say 5 days, and on the fifth day you go and ask your manager these questions. Is going to be really, really annoyed, because he will definitely know that you, even on the last day of the work task, is supposed to be completed and you don't understand. And likewise, early enough, managers are open. And my suggestion here is that if your manager does not clearly explain you the task, ask again, because managers are there to finish their work. They're as good as their employees. So there's no way a manager does not want you to finish the work. They will actually be happy. This is what at least I have seen. Unless otherwise, maybe there are some escalations, but I have never seen that a manager does not want you to do your work on time. Thank you. Great question. Keep it up, guys. Really, really good question. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. Thanks for joining. We have like a pretty good number of people joining us today. I'm loving it. So thanks a lot, guys, and keep sending your questions. All right. So my next question is, why do some smart people still get overlooked for promotions? Great question. Very, very good question. So sometimes smart people focus only on completing tasks quietly, but promotions often go to people who show ownership, communicate clearly, solve business problems, and build trust with stakeholders. If your value is invisible, decision makers may not fully understand your impact. So, guys, one thing I personally, as a manager, did all my life, and my manager did that, and she taught me that most of the time we hire people for attitude, not particularly for uh, only skills, because the skills can be taught. Attitude is something that's very hard to teach. So your managers really value your work ethics along with all the points we discussed. So make sure you are able to build that trust with your stakeholders or managers or leaders, and you are that one person they trust and rely on. And that only comes when you start showing ownership, when you start communicating in their language, when you are able to solve the problems they have on hand, and when they trust you. So this is the key to really build trust and be ready for the next promotion. Thank you, thank you. So next question is, how does AI affect the idea of becoming harder to replace? Wow, that's interesting. Good question. So we all know, guys, that AI can speed up work, but it does not replace human judgment. Context matters always, that AI does not have. Accountability is another something that AI is not accountable for the work. You generate work from AI, and you gave it to your manager or your stakeholder, are accountable for, not AI. And relationship skills, irreplaceable, because AI cannot build relationship. So people who only use AI as a shortcut may become weaker, but people who use AI to improve their thinking, check quality, and make better decisions can become more valuable. Thank you. With that, let's look at the next question. Okay. Alrighty, so our next question is, what does value beats effort mean in simple terms? Good point again. Guys, you're asking brilliant questions today. All right, so it means that being busy is not the same as being effective. Effort says I worked hard, value says something got better because of organizations care about results such as saving time, improving quality, reducing risk, helping customers, or making decisions easier. I hope that answered. Alrighty, so I really like your questions, and we have a big list of questions on with that question. Alrighty, so what is one practical habit someone can start immediately after this presentation? Very, very good question. So I would say start down four things: what you completed, what improved, what problems you prevented, and what your next focus is. This is simple, but these habits built will help you to track your impact and prepare for your performance week. Thank you, thank you. Alrighty, so the next question is, what should an employee do when they do not know whether to decide, ask, or escalate? Very, very good point again. So, guys, use your judgment based on risk and your level of authority. Very important to understand your boundaries in the workplace. It's not like home where you feel free to do whatever pleases you. You need to understand what are the boundaries for you, what is your authority level, and what you can do versus what you cannot do, and what is the escalation criteria. So use your judgment based on the risk on hand and the authority level you have been given by the organization. Then decide when the path is clear and the risk is low. Ask when you need more context or permission. Escalate when the risk is serious or the nature of the risk is urgent or could affect the business promptly. So, whenever, guys, you're dealing with risk, there are two things you really need to learn about, and that is the impact and probability of risk. So, if a risk on hand you have and you are analyzing it, you need to understand how big the impact of this risk is and what is the probability of this happening. Like, if your risk is low and the probability is like 1, of course you can go ahead. But if your impact is huge and the probability of that risk happening is 100%, understanding the impact and probability of risk is very important for you as professional. So strongly they choose the right action based on the situation they have on hand. Every situation is different, and therefore every situation needs a different answer. I hope I answered your question. Alrighty, so okay, so this looks like the closing question, but I'll take it now. Somebody is saying, what is the biggest message you want us to remember from this session? We covered in this session today that are all very, very important, but I think my biggest that I really wanted to communicate to my audience of this session today was intelligence is helpful, but visible value protects your career, right? Intelligence is great and it is the baseline, but the visible value protects your career. So to become harder to replace, you need to understand expectations, communicate early, build strong relationships with your stakeholders, leaders, managers, and keep learning every day. In today's workplace, being smart is not enough. You must be clear, useful, visible, and ready to learn. I hope that makes sense. Alrighty, so with that, let's move to the next question. After this question, we will take a 5 minutes break, guys. I know it's a lot to take in, and feel free to write down the tips I'm giving you, or we will be, posting this publicly after the session is done. So feel free to, review this after this session. That really gives you an option to replay the messages where I'm talking really fast and covering a lot of content. And I totally understand that, you need to absorb information and then move to the next one. So guys, next question is, what if I'm already doing valuable work but no one notices? That is pretty one very visible, exactly why visibility matters. Valuable work can still be missed if it's not communicated clearly. You do not need to brag, but you do need to show progress every day at work. A simple weekly update can help: what you completed, what you improved, what risks you prevented, and what you are focusing on next week. That makes your value easier for others to see. Thank you, guys. So with that, let's go for a 5 minutes break, and I will. It's currently we'll start our break like at 2:10 Eastern time. We have joined you from Toronto, and I see that we have very global audience. And guys, again. Wherever you are joining us from, take your time, take a quick 5 minutes break, and we will see you back at 2:15 Eastern time, which is Toronto time. Hello everyone, and welcome back. So I hope you enjoyed your short break. So without further ado, let's look at our questions from audience. The next question we are going to focus on is, how do I know my organization actually, what my organization actually values? So guys, really good question. So this is the number one question you want to understand to excel in a job interview, to apply for a job interview, to do your job right day to day, to do a project right, a program right, a portfolio needs to be aligned with this question. So thank you for asking this question. Actually, this is the most important question an employee needs to ask, or a job candidate needs to ask, or a senior leader needs to ask every day. So organizations are there for a reason, a strategy, and some strategic goals which differentiate them from other organizations. For one organization could be very important for one and literally useless for another. So that's it. Let's picture this. If I am an organization competing in my market on quality versus economy of scale, for example. So if I'm competing on quality, my goal is to produce is the best from quality perspective. If my market strategy is economy of scale, I want to produce a product which is cheapest. My criteria of value will be very different from that organization which is competing on quality and wants to make product which are best in the market. So if, let's say, you're working in an organization which is competing on cost, and you are buying maybe as a project manager or operation manager products which are very expensive to make, you are failing your organization. On the other hand, if you are working in an organization that is competing on the quality and you are putting cheap project, then you are ruining the reputation of that organization. So the core message here is to understand what your organization's core values are and what values most to the organization from branding perspective, ethics, new perspective, goals perspective, the return on investment perspective, based on the career level, based on the situation, based on your situation and your role. Understand what value means at your level, right? Look at what leaders talk about most: cost, speed, quality, customer experience, risk, revenue, or productivity. Then connect your work to those priorities. You can also ask your manager directly, what are the most important outcomes for our team? Matters at each level. So again, guys, if somebody would ask me to say which is the most important information an employee needs to know, the first, this is what I'm going to say: understand what values to your organization, then understand what values to the department and your team and to your manager. Adding value, you're doing the right work. Question. Well, this is another good question. So, can being too quiet hurt your career? Yes, it can. Quiet people can be excellent workers, but if their impact is invisible, they may be overlooked. Being quiet is not the problem at all. The problem is when people do not know what you are contributing. Clear updates, strong documentation, and useful communication can help quiet professional becomes more visible without changing their personality. So, we do a lot of like personality assessments, and there are different type of people. There are introverts, extroverts, high influence people, forceful people, quiet people, people who process information, people who respond abruptly. And having one style does not mean you are weak or poor performer. Everybody has their own styles. I have actually seen people, when they are in a profession for so long, it becomes part of their personality. But that's not a problem. The problem is that you don't know your personality, and then you do things which makes you invisible. So being quiet does not mean that you are not visible. You can do written posts. You can do good emails. You can create presentations, and then there are a lot of other tools you can use to make yourself visible. So being quiet as a person is not a problem. Being introvert as a person is not a problem, but not contributing and showing your work is a problem for sure. So if you are a type of person who is very process driven, then you bring different strengths to the team, and that strengths can leverage without you necessarily giving a speech in the room. So I hope that answered your question. With that, let's move to the next question. Alrighty, guys. So what is the biggest mistake smart employees make? Wow, great question. So one of the biggest mistake is assuming that doing the task well is enough. So particularly related to today's session, We talked about visibility a lot. If you know, no matter how good you are, if your work is not seen, you're invisible. And invisible is not good. So one of the biggest mistake, at least in my humble opinion, is that assuming that you do the good work and it's seen, it's not enough. Smart employees may focus on finishing the assignment, but high value employees understand the reasons behind them. They ask, what problem is this solving? And how does this help the business? That mindset make their work more useful and strategic. Perfect. All right. With that, let's move to the next question. I hope, guys, you are enjoying your session. Give me a. All right. Thanks, guys. So we are getting some red and purple hearts. Good to see that. Question is, what should I do if I make a mistake at work? Wow. Well, sounds like everyday scenario, right, guys? So we all make mistakes, and if you don't make a mistake, you're not a human. So great question. So, guys, the practical option I can think of is that um, own your mistakes very early, and that mistake can be a small one or a big one. So really, one thing you want to understand is how impacting the work of the team, and then propose or bring a solution when you highlight the problem. So as so a strong response you can give to your leader is that here's what happened, here's the risk, and here's what I'm going to do to fix it, and here is how I will prevent it next time. So mistakes do not always damage trust. Hiding them or blaming others for sure does damage trust. So feel free to take notes, or in the comments, guys, put if you agree with my answers or you disagree with my answers. And I'm just going to take a sip of my tea because my throat is killing me right now, guys, and then we'll move to the next question. Okay, guys, so our next question is actually a great question again. And I'm so happy that you guys are so engaged in everybody is asking a brilliant question. And I think it's not just going to help the audience in this room today. It will actually help the audience who will listen to this video again. So thank you for these wonderful questions. So our question is, how can I become more proactive without overstepping? Very thoughtful. So I would say use your judgment. If the risk is low and the next step is obvious, take an action. If you need authority, ask. And if the issue is serious or urgent, escalate for sure. Being proactive does not mean making every decision alone. It means not waiting passively when you can move the work forward responsibly. So, guys, again, We have very like a manager or senior manager or a chief or maybe an entry level employee or a co-op student. So you all have your own level of authority and independence to make. Most of the time, it is very clearly documented in job descriptions, your job duties or tasks, and if it's unclear, you can ask. But as a matter of fact, mostly you know what is in your capacity versus what is not when it comes to decision making. One lesson I really remember from my days at Amazon, and that we learned about the revolving door decision making theory. So we were told that you know um, if you are making a decision and that can reverse easily, it means it's not very risky to do the task. On the other hand, if you're making a decision that's not reversible, think 100 times. So you want to make sure that you understand what you are doing will be something that can be reversed easily or that cannot be reversed. So of course the situations where reversing the situation will cost company huge impact is something where you really want to make sure that you escalate and take authority before moving forward and making sure that there is no room for mistakes. So, with that, next move to the next question. What are communication skills? So, why are communication skills so important if my technical skills are strong? Again, a great question. So, guys, technical skills help you to do your work, but communication helps people understand the work you have done, right? So, you can be a developer who is really, really good at coding, or you can be a designer who can connect the logic with the design. You could be, you know, a PMO lead who understand the compliance very well, but finishing your work is one thing and then helping others to understand it is another thing. So if you are able to do work but not able to justify your work or explain how your work is connected with the other pieces, it will impact your performance at work. If your message is unclear, people may delay decisions. They may misunderstand priorities or ask for rework. So, strong communication makes your technical skills more powerful because it turns your knowledge into actions that other can use. So, with that, let's go to the next question, guys. Our next question is, how do I use AI without becoming dependent on it? Again, very, very interesting question. So, use AI as a support tool always, not as your brain. So, guys, I have done some other videos on this topic as well. AI is not the future; it is the present, and it is not too good to have tool today. In my humble opinion, it's a must-have tool because AI will expedite the work you are doing, and it will also validate the work you're doing. It will give you access to the knowledge or content that we never had before. So, by all means, use it. And basically, if you are not using AI, like you are not for future proofing. So, we have two types of people who are in the job market today. One type of employee is leveraging AI, the other is not. And then every day, people who are not using AI versus people who are leveraging AI, the gap between them is becoming bigger and bigger. So, as they say, that AI will not take your job, the person using AI will take your job. So, We technically are kind of bound to use AI, but we do not want to use AI as your brain. You still want to use your brain that AI does not have as compared to your brain. So use that, leverage your brain, and use AI to support the or accelerate your work. Let it help with drafts, summaries, ideas, or structure, but always check the fact. Add context. The value is not just in using AI, the value is using AI wisely. So, the edge we have over AI or bots is that we have a brain, we have context, we can build relationship, we have judgment, and we know the context for our organization and priorities or the work on hand better than AI. So always check your work and never pass your work to your stakeholders without making sure you understand every line of it. I hope that helped. So with that, let's move to the next question. Next question is, what does it mean to think like an owner? Guys, this is something I personally was an employee for a long time, and I'm an owner of business as well. So thinking like an owner means considering the bigger impact of your choices. We all make different choices every day, and that make or break the deal. So you ask questions like, would I spend money on this? Would I accept the risk? Would I delay this decision? It does not mean you own the company, but it means you think beyond your task and consider time, cost, quality, risk, and result like somebody who owns the business. A simple example could be that I am responsible for finishing a task. If I am a company owner, I'm not taking a chance of going out when a friend showed up and distracting you from your work. I know I have to finish that work, and what are the monetary or non-monetary consequences of not finishing that work on time? So if you put yourself in your owner's shoe, or if you're empathetic, then you stop making excuses or lame excuses, or delaying the important work, and that is where your managers or leaders or owners start trusting you, that you care, and when you care, then your owners or leaders or managers, they care for you, and when time comes where they have to pick top 10 employees, then definitely trust is the number one factor that usually, at least as an owner, I would consider as a criteria. If I have 10 people, factor where people are reliable, and reliability comes from ownership. Alrighty, so we have a lot other questions to answer, but we still have like about 23 minutes, and we can definitely cover some more questions. Great interactive session, guys. Thank you so much. So, what is that one thing someone can do in the next 30 days to become harder to replace? Solid question. So, pick one practical habit each week, guys. In 1 week, clarify expectations. In week 2, turn your task into value stream. In week 3, improve one stakeholder relationship. And week 4, learn and apply one skill. This works because becoming harder to replace is not about the one big move. It's about building useful habits consistently every day and every week. Alrighty. So with that, we are moving to our next question. Guys, let's take a quick 5 minutes break here, because yeah, let's take another 5 minutes break. I've been asked by audience, and then we will reconnect at the 2:45 Eastern Standard Time. So, when we come back from work, we will be discussing the next question, which is what if my workplace reward people who look busy instead of people who create value? So, great question. And let's start our break. We'll come back and review the answer together for this question. Alrighty, guys, so welcome back. Sorry, we had a little technical difficulty. So let's start again without further ado. So I am waiting in the chat for you to confirm that you can hear us okay. So just give me a heart in the chat if you can hear me, and then we will start. All right, guys. So it looks like you can hear us quite all right. So let's start answering the question. So before we started the break, we were looking at question: what if my workplace rewards people who look busy instead of people who create value? So that can happen, of course, guys. We all work with humans, and to or is human. So management can also make mistakes, and mistake can happen at any level, and this is very much possible, but it is still safer to focus on value. Looking busy may help temporarily, but real value lasts longer because it connects to results. The best approach is to show both effort and outcome. Do not just say, I worked on this all week. Say, I worked on this and it helped reduce delays, improve clarity, or support a decision. And that makes your work harder to ignore. So, guys, we just not work only to show people that we are working. For me, work is very different than showing up and doing what you are supposed to do or you are asked to do. I want to add value and I want to learn. And learning only happens when you actually work rather than showing or pretending you're working. So look busy, do nothing is not the option here, but look busy and do work. And add value is what you are looking for from organizational impact perspective, and also your own career growth perspective as a professional mature every day. So next question is, how can an entry level employee show value if they do not make big decisions? Great questions. You don't need a senior title to create value. Entry level employees can show value by being reliable, asking clear questions, reducing mistakes, improving small processes, and communicating early. Even small improvements matter when they save time, prevent confusion, or help the team move faster. Guys, just imagine in your head there's no job, a small job. If somebody is paying you to do that work is important. Otherwise, people will not pay you. So you are making an impact in your own capacity when you have paid work. That I can guarantee you. And you always have options to add value in your own little capacity, because if I'm an employer and I'm giving this job to somebody and I'm paying them, of course, I want some work in return, and that work is important enough that I'm paying you for that. So do not assume a job is a small job. Every job has room to add value at a level. So, is being visible more important than being skilled? No, no, not at all. Skills still matters, but invisible skill can be overlooked. The strongest professional have both. They do good work and make the impact clear. Visibility without skill can look fake, but skill without visibility can be missed. So the goal is not to choose one, the goal is to combine competence with very, very clear communication. Thank you. Great question. The next question is, what if I do not know how to measure the value of my work? So, guys, value is not always about money. You can measure value in different ways: time saved, mistakes reduced, decisions made faster, customer experience improved, risk prevented, or teamwork made easier. Ask yourself, what became better because I did this? That question helps turn ordinary tasks into value statements. Thank you for asking a really good question. And with that, Nats, I think we have one, two, three, four, five, or six more questions. And guys, I'm going to enhance my speed to make sure I cover all these questions before the end of the session. Um, so, how do I say no to extra work without seeming lazy or negative? So, do not just say no, explain the trade offs. For example, I can take this on, but it may delay the current priority. Which one should I do first? This shows that you're not thinking negative or saying no for the sake of no. Rather, you are thinking responsibly. High performers do not accept everything blindly. They protect quality by clarifying priorities. With that, next question is, what if my manager only gives feedback when something goes wrong? Good question. So then you should create feedback moments before problem happens. Ask questions like, am I focusing on the right priority, or is this the level of quality you expected? This helps you avoid surprises. It also shows ownership because you're not waiting until the end to find out whether you were aligned. So, guys, I have seen a lot of different managers I reported into in my career, and some people only give you feedback when they want you to make correction, but in the back end they're collecting everything you're doing and then they reward you at a certain level. So you need to differentiate if people are too busy to give you positive feedback in the moment, because you never know, or maybe you want to understand that this person's style is that. So it's important to understand your leader's style and time on hand, and then take the corrective measures. So our next question is, how can someone recover if they're already seen as average at work? Wow, pretty good question. So we want to start by becoming more consistent and more visible. Clarify expectations, deliver on small promises, communication. Progress should be shown, and we show improvement over time. So reputation does not usually change in one day. It changes when people repeatedly see better judgment, clear communication, and stronger follow through. So do not just show performance for a few days and expect people will start like changing your perspective right away. Rather, keep consistently making progress, showing up on time, making difference, and being visible and adding value throughout the days. And do not just stop after a week or two or a month. If somebody does not right away acknowledge your changes, people will see it. Sometimes it's right away, sometimes it will take some time, but be consistent and show value. What should I do if someone else takes credit of my work? Yeah, so there are different types of people we deal with at work, and this is one of the scenarios that really personally I don't like. But definitely these people are there. There are people who love to steal other people's work and take credit for that. If that happens to you, stay professional and use facts. You can say, I'm glad this work helped the team. Just to add context, I handled the analysis and prepared the recommendations. The key is to correct the record without sounding emotional or attacking the person. Regular updates also help prevent this because your contribution is already visible. So, guys, we did discuss that in the past that visibility is very important while you are working, and let people know that what you are working and how it is going, because this will help you to avoid these type of situations. So with that, let's go to the next question. Can being too independent become a problem? Yes, absolutely. Independence is a good thing, but too much independence can create misalignment. If you work alone for too for produce something that does not match what was needed. Strong professionals know when to move independently. Very important point, guys. Make sure you're always alignment is one of the biggest thing in the job performance. You want to make sure you're aligned with all the stakeholder and not just one, because that is what keeps all the teams, you know, alive, aligned, less ambiguous, and the teams that outperform are always working together than isolation. Breaking the silos has been a task for like almost all the organizations in all the environments. Unless your task is standalone task, make sure you collaborate. Is job security still possible today? Complete job security is never a guarantee, but career security is possible. So job security depends on one role or one company. Career security comes from transferable value, digital skills, stakeholder management, continuous learning. All these skills will help you to secure your career. The goal is to become useful in many situations, not just comfortable in one situation. So, this is the core reason I always recommend people to keep on progressing in their career. Learn something that is outside the scope of your typical job. So if you are a developer, do project management courses. If you are a project manager, learn program management. If you're a program manager, specialize in risk. If you're a risk manager, learn agile. So there's always something you can learn that will make you stand out when you are dealing with a crowd. And today's job market, guys, is definitely applying for a job is very easy. Replacing is a worker is easier than before. So be strategic, expand your education, your enhance your profiles, connect with the right people, and excel in your career. Thank you so much for joining us today. It is lovely, spending time with you guys. Amazing session today, and we had a lot of people join. We still have 652 people watching this even now, so appreciate it. We got through some really good questions, guys. Appreciate the question. Thank you so much for joining. I'm here for another 5 minutes if somebody wants to ask another question, but I will close the session for today for those who have other commitments and want to drop. So thank you so much for joining, guys. We are here for another 5 minutes. If in case anybody wants to join us in the chat, I'm going to put the website of my company, so feel free to browse snsccs.com. If you have any questions or want to know more about the hard skills in the market today. Also, guys, we have this YouTube channel. We post the very informative sessions here and there every day. There is content. We have done a lot of master classes for free. So guys, if you want to learn for free, this is a great place for you to be. Feel free to subscribe the channel if you're not a subscriber right now. That would help you to notify to come in near future, so you can turn on the notifications for that. If generic career focused sessions, but we have very specialized classes such as PMP, PGMP. We have the upcoming portfolio life class, and it's pretty kind of niche, market. Portfolio is pretty much in demand. functional area from business perspective. So feel free to turn the notification on and hit the like and subscribe button for this session. With that, we will be here for another 3 minutes, and in case anybody wants to ask a question. All right, guys, so we'll be sharing the links to our future live classes. So please, turn on the notification if you're interested. This is free, full 2 hour session covering one specialized topic that can really add a lot of value to your career. I'm one of the top certified from PMI. We're authorized training partner for PMI, and all the resources we share are coming from an authentic sources. So, I would really encourage you to review and watch these live sessions if you're really looking to future proof your career and you want to know something outside of your career. With that, thank you so very much for joining, guys. And I really appreciate the feedback, the questions, and your presence here today. Thank you so much, and hopefully, we'll see you in our next sessions as well. Thanks for joining again, and have a great evening, afternoon, or morning based on where you are. And we will see you in the next session. Thank you and goodbye.